really quick intros, and then I can kind of take you guys into the back end here of what this looks like. So my name is Andy Truscott. I'm the marketing and comms program officer here at the DDOA. And along with Ryan Morris on my side, this project has kind of been in our kind of basketball court, so to say. So I'll let Ryan Morris introduce.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ryan. I'm an intern at the DDOA, and I have been kind of building the public art archive and loading it into FirstMap.
Kristen.
Hello, I'm Kristen Pleasanton. I'm the deputy director here. And public art has been something we have kept track of. We have files of things going back many years. And so this is a really exciting project for us too.
And then Ryan, I'll kick it your way and then to your team.
Awesome. So my name is Ryan Grover. I am sort of co-administrator of the new Public Arts Commission that was established by Newcastle County to not only track what is already public art owned and operated by Newcastle County, but also to help help create a structure to build public art and create opportunities for public art within Newcastle County on Newcastle County properties in the future. Today we have Nicole Sexton, who is also helps with administration. I'll let her introduce herself. But we also have Anna Wick and Benet Burton, which are two members of the Public Arts Commission. Cheryl Mack, who is the president of the commission, was not able to join us today, but Benet and Anna are more than capable to be able to sort of hang in and sort of represent. So.
Awesome. Does anyone want to say hi? Tell us a little bit more about yourself. If not, totally fine.
So I'm Nicole Sexton. I run the art studio right outside of Wilmington through Newcastle County Department of Community Services. So I'm excited to learn more, and I'm helping Ryan out with the commission. Yeah, there's construction behind me, so I apologize if there's some point where I'm talking and it's banging really loud, but we're getting a new high fire kiln, so we're very excited.
Hi, I'm Benet Burton. I'm on the Public Arts Commission. I'm a content researcher and writer for the state of Delaware through the Government Information Center. But for public art purposes, I was the former curatorial project manager for the Delaware Art Museum. And I designed, implemented, and managed the Public Art Stewards Training Program, which essentially just took 8 Wilmington residents to teach them in the art of conservation using public art in all 8 districts of Wilmington.
Fantastic. Thank you, Benet.
I'm Anna Wick. I'm also on the Newcastle County Public Arts Commission. I'm a landscape architect and I am an associate professor at UD. I love that the Public Arts Commission requires a landscape architect on board, and I teach our urban design studio and our history of landscape architecture sequence, and really like to emphasize to my students the importance of spaces for art in public places. So super excited to be here and hear what's happening.
Fantastic. Thanks, Anna. So I'm going to just share really quick, and everyone's favorite phrase, can everyone see my screen? Fantastic. Great. So what I'll kind of do really quick is just kind of give a quick landscape of what this is and kind of like noodle through really quick, and then we'll go more in depth on kind of each tab. So the state overall through our technological division, DTI, has a wing specifically for a program called FirstMap, or in some cases, as you'll see here, it's called ArcGIS. That is a program that is used by a ton of different government entities across the nation. And why I was initially intrigued in it is because there are also a ton of other maps that are hosted within it that one would posit decision makers would use as they create new towns, as they create or look at new opportunities for things, or even try to better understand why maybe something is happening in a certain area or not another. They should be able to theoretically add this layer on top of other layers that they're looking at, and kind of make decisions based off that. So as we were looking at different platforms to use, this was attractive because it's already a state entity that is currently being used. That also means it's free. So that's also a very helpful tool. But also in that case, it meant that we could depend on our team of designers and our team of kind of back-end tech people to help build it, and it wouldn't be solely on us to kind of take care of. So kind of why we came here. Assuming that this is something that you guys are interested in and kind of want to co-opt along with us, in essence, we would add you guys on as members, which would allow you a series of functionality within here. What I just need to check with my tech guy over at DTI is that that it's possible to add in people outside of the @delaware.gov domain, but I'm assuming it will be completely fine. So within here, these are kind of multiple layers that inform the project, right? So quite literally, like there is the back-end map that they're looking at, there is the form that they're looking at, etc. And so as we go through content, everything is a separate layer, but then comes together in the larger thing at the top. So as an example, so this is what Ryan has been quite literally filling out for every piece of art that exists out there that we know of. So the great news, because it's government based, is that we have the most up-to-date kind of map of the state and of areas around here. So in the case of, let's use our building here, they type in the address, boom, it pulls it up on the map. Of course, it's gonna take forever to load apparently. What it does allow you to do, in the sense that you could see the map here, is it allows you to then drag it around the area. So for instance, if, let's use Winterthur as an example, if there is public art on an estate, but it's not at the exact address, say, of the mailing address, you could theoretically drag this to be more precise as to where that public art is, and that will translate then onto the map that you will, be able to kind of walk to that specific latitude and longitude. Title, if known, date of installation or date created, artist name, that artist's website if one exists, which county it exists in, which for obvious reasons we'll come back to as a form of filtering. The form that the public art is, any mediums that are actually known, right? So is it bronze? Is it concrete? Is it paint? Is it glass? Dimensions, if known. If there are any themes, we kept this here on the back end just in case we wanted to kind of create a story out of kind of the art that's being submitted. So say, for instance, there was a plethora of public art built by African-American women in Delaware. We could start identifying that in themes and maybe create stories out of that, which will be a page you see in a little bit here. If there's a description known, we can throw in a description here. My thinking here is, if there was a story behind why it was created or why what you see is what you see, we could place that there. Oftentimes this is probably provided by the artist if they're still alive, or in some cases where we see public art with a little plaque next to it, we could take from a picture and type it into this here. And then sponsored, commissioned by, and images, of which you can drop as many images as you'd like into this platform. This is not just desktop only. You can do this quite literally from your phone. And so as we're building this, kind of step 2 in the process would be getting people out on the streets with their phones, right? To just literally, as they're with a piece of public art, fill out the form, take a picture on your phone, upload it here, and hit submit. In this case, as it's the link that is kind of our internal link, once it's submitted, there's no actual need for back-end approval. you know, because it's us submitting it, we trust ourselves to do so. And so it'll just immediately go onto the map. There is a crowdsourced survey that we've created in the sense that maybe we could depend on the general public or other stakeholders to start submitting their own submissions or information about art near them, of which then we would go and kind of quality check, make sure it's real, make sure it's there, and then we could fill out more if we knew about, or if we know kind of more information there. The idea here is that it would just allow some people to be more boots on the ground for us, and then allow us to kind of go flush that out with more information as we see fit. The big one here is just like, tell me where it is and we can flush the rest out, right? Or we can use some other volunteers or people to flush the rest out. But this would at least help us know, A, is there something new we don't know about? But B, also, is there just something out somewhere that we just have no clue about? And the general public or other advocates could help us with that. As this is then imported, this is kind of what our backend looks like, which is not what the public facing side would be. This is just what we can kind of see on the back end as a database. And so based on kind of the information we have, we've been entering stuff in here. And so you kind of see on our back end, it's the very kind of uncleaned up, just raw data of the information or the artwork that's out there. With any kind of information we know and any kind of media we have. This is, again, not what the public would see, but rather it's just kind of the backend database. So those are kind of the three tools as it relates to kind of the creation of and management of the public art map. The actual public, or let me stop. Are there any questions around kind of what we've seen here? Cool. If anything pops up later, just let me know. No problem. The public angle of it, there is quite literally template upon template upon template that we can use. And what I've pulled up here are just some other government entities that are using the same platform that we've seen identified as ArcGIS. And so therefore are kind of working together with our tech team to say, this is what we like about maybe this one, but what we don't like about this one, as a way to try to build a few different options out that then we can kind of flush out around the team. So you'll see all of these are the same platform, but very much look very different. And so there are two different, as it relates to the public angle, there are two different things that can come out of ArcGIS. There is the, what I'll call the overarching map, which is what you see here. So it is not, it is quite literally meant to pinpoint and then provide data, and that's it. And then there is what they call story maps, which is what you kind of see here, right? Where they kind of like have self-curated and are walking you through, maybe this is, you know, the city of Newark or something like that. Like you could kind of walk through what that public art looks like in that area. I'll use an example of something we're already thinking of. So there's an artist named Christian Kanningberg who does a lot of murals around the state. He has stuff everywhere. So we will very likely kind of create a story out of all of Christian's to say, like, if you want to follow this artist who has a ton of work around the state, here's where you can find all his work, kind of thing. Similarly, this is where that theme may come into play, right? So if we see a few pieces of public art that maybe play in the same angle of themes, we could create stories out of that. This is on top of this. So the large kind of scale map. The kind of part two, or the extension of, is this creating stories. And I think that's kind of, this is part two of our implement.
I think you froze, Andy.
There we go. Can you hear me now? Sorry, clearly our bandwidth is a little maybe stressed from elections downstairs. This is an example of a non-story map, but in essence looks like it's a website. Maybe doesn't look as kind of matter of fact as this does, and has a little more style to it. So this is something I'm working with our design team to kind of see what is possible. The other thing I like about this, right, is that there's just a little more visual aspects to it. It's not just pinpoints for pinpoint sakes. And then, this would allow you to kind of look more and then kind of delve deeper, including, kind of how this pulls up here, and then leading to even if we were to create a kind of landing page for each artwork. This, as I'm being told by ArcGIS, which is kind of the idea that each artwork has its own landing page, would likely be something that we link to an external website. So whether that's the division's website, whether that's another kind of landing page, we would in essence have to create a landing page for every piece of art outside of the map. What I'm kind of gathering from them is this is about what we should expect to see, which is a pop-up window with all the data in it that you can kind of look at. That's the easy kind of first step within ArcGIS in terms of seeing what the artwork is. If there was a choice that we wanted to kind of expand it out to something more like this, that would be kind of outside of the ArcGIS realm and would just be something we'd have to figure out kind of how to create, what to create. And then again, this is just another example of, in this case, a story map, right? So they're able to kind of group public art together by medium in this case, and then show it around the area that they're in. So kind of the blessing and the curse is that there are a ton of opportunities of what this can look like to the general public. And so what we're just working with now with our tech team is what templates already exist. The also great news is so long as it's in this ArcGIS platform, they can just steal from other states or other entities. The code already exists, so they would just kind of borrow or copy paste it over. And so that's kind of where in the process we are right now. We've been able to upload any of the public art that we currently kind of have files on, with the idea, right, that we know we're still missing a bunch. We are well aware of that, and that's kind of the next kind of step of this all as we're building the public entity, is also then to build out where we know there's art around the state that just clearly isn't in the map yet. So that's kind of the back end of ArcGIS. I know let me pull up some of your questions really quick, because then we can address them as we're going here. And then feel free as we're going, just let me know if there's any questions that pop up. Timeline is a little TBD right now, only for the reason that our initial contact at DTI is actually retiring in 2 weeks. So we've been given a new contact. We are waiting on just our intro phone call with her to better understand kind of their timeline as well, of like where they think they can start delivering drafts from. It is my goal to get this, it is my hope and goal to get this launched by the end of this year in some kind of public angle. I acknowledge it won't be comprehensive of all the art that's out there, but at least it'll be public. And then it updates in real time. So as we submit artwork, it will just begin popping up on the website as it's refreshed. We saw the process for entering artwork, and then the fact that there's an approval process only for if it is a external general public person submitting it. But in the case where, like, for your council itself, I would feel comfortable, because you all understand what public art is, that as you put it in, it could go straight through the kind of approval process. But I think our big one is just where it's the general public submitting. we would want some kind of just check to make sure that A, it's really public art, B, that it's not on private property, and then C, it would allow us to get out and maybe get a little more information about the art before pushing it public. Limitations, I think, really is only on, as I'm kind of putting it on, is that it's on public land and not on private land, and that it is public art in that sense. And so I think that just, you know, I think it comes down to what we define that to be. I tend to take a pretty wide definition and angle of it, and have really, our form is a stolen form of other states that I think have pretty robust public art maps. So it has pretty much every medium that we could think of for in terms of what material and what kind it is. But things like the painted electric boxes, that's public art to me. The painted bus stations, that's public art to me. I think, you know, maybe like posters that are just like hung on walls, probably not public art, but if it's permanent, then maybe it is, right? So I just think that would be something that as we kind of go through here and as we go public, we'll probably have to craft out, you know, that messaging around what is versus what isn't public art for the sake of this statewide public art map. Currently, there's not a cost for participation. I think next year they said that there just might be a small fee for just the creation or the maintenance of the map, but I've told that's in the hundreds of dollars. And so that would just be something that, you know, there's no cost really there. I think what I've gathered from our DTI firm is if we were to be looking at something that is a highly customized product, that there might be kind of an RFP type situation there that, you know, if there was an extreme amount of manpower necessary to execute it, there might be some costs associated with that. But what we've been told as we've been working through this is that this is, even their creation of all this is free to us as a state agency. So I think in that sense, it would just come down to if the state is choosing to pass on, say, like usage, license usage kind of fees, that's what we're looking at in terms of cost. Can it be sorted by location? Yes. Can it be sorted by art owner? Since we're gathering that data in terms of, so let me actually clarify, are we talking art owner as an artist or art owner as in like organization?
Probably like organization.
Okay. Maybe. I mean, we could throw that as a field here, right? So in the sense of, can you give me like an example of where, like, if you already have a public art in mind, then like what that would look like?
Ones that might already be included there would have to do with the a couple of sculptures that are outside the Newark Library. I think you already sort of showed a couple of examples of ones that are owned by Newcastle County or perhaps owned by the library, the Friends of the Newark Library. I think part of that's still being sort of worked out at this point. But I know that individuals initially, when we presented this idea to the PAC, was that they were interested to know whether or not we would be able to create like a Newcastle public art tour.
Sure.
And I guess part of that will probably just come up in themes using your, that could be a theme which could be developed into a storyline.
Correct. So I think there's two options there. There's themes, there's kind of like the sponsored by or commissioned by. So like if it is owned by Newcastle County government, we could throw that there and then we would be able to sort based on that alone. And then to your point, as you know, as we are building out then kind of what's in here and then building out to stories, you know, a Newcastle County tour could quite literally look like some variation of this. Of which, you know, I have a ton of other links that I'll send to everyone post this meeting of other kind of story opportunities that or templates that exist out there. But absolutely, I think not only is there an opportunity here just to sort by county, which the great news is that Newcastle County is one of 3, so it's easy just to sort. But we could create, in the sense for the commission, right? You know, either a tour of murals around Newcastle County, of sculptures around Newcastle County, and that really just comes down to knowing what's there, telling the tech team, this is what I want featured, and then they just kind of check the check boxes and build it from there. So, and then I think as you're seeing here, right, like there are just so many different templates of stories. So like, is there something shown behind the data? How much data is shown here? And so as I send you guys examples, you'll be able to kind of flush through like, hey, we like this, we like this. And we can kind of create what works best for everyone there. And then, yeah, I mean, I have no problem sharing the map on Newcastle County web pages. I mean, that's in essence what the goal of this is, right? Is that we acknowledged that there wasn't a comprehensive state level look at the state of what exists out there. And so rather than having, like, we know, for instance, right, like the city of Newark has a public art map on ArcGIS, but I don't know if it's been updated. And also kind of half of it is, in my opinion, private art. It's, you know, in buildings, but it's maybe art that is either owned by the city or is just deemed like historic. So they've got it listed there. But in my opinion, I would rather, you know, it's great that they have it, but I wouldn't have known about it if I wasn't searching to create our own public art map. So where we can, you know, have the statewide one that then is easily kind of filtered down or designed out to be then for each county, or even down to, you know, in your case, Ryan, right? Like if there was a specific amount of public art on your lands for your organization, we could create a story just even based around that, right? So that there is even just one at that even micro level. So, but in essence, it would be a public tool. So we're not going to gatekeep on it. And then similarly, you know, as we're working through here, you know, as we're creating credits and stuff like that, we'd obviously just be sure to include everyone and every team member here. So, so I think those were the questions shot through. I would love to just open it up to everyone to say, like, do you have questions? Are there things that maybe you haven't seen here that you guys were thirsty to see more of? And then this way, as I'm kind of looking through links, I can be sure to send you guys either opportunities that currently exist out there in templates, or where I might be seeing some restrictions around what seems to be possible on the platform.
Andy, can I ask one other question as sort of a follow-up to the initial questions that we sent you?
Yeah.
In defining public art, at the Newcastle, so for Newcastle County government, we have been as inclusive as we possibly can be in this situation. So we've included like paintings that are on view on the inside of libraries,
Okay.
Artist installations that are happening in public spaces in Newcastle County government buildings,
Okay.
that kind of thing. Those are still, you're still comfortable in terms of admitting those things within this?
I think so right now. I mean, it's my concern really just is around, I don't want people breaking laws to go see the art, right? So like,
Right.
if it's on a private property, I don't want to be directing people there to go see something that might be on private property. I think one of the things we've got here on, am I still sharing? I realize I'm clicking around. Okay, great. On the specific, like the crowdsourced one is like, is this public art currently on display? So and that's kind of maybe the important question as it relates to maybe this question is, as that public art then is either rotated out or is kind of moved on, is knowing that it's then no longer on display. And so either kind of pull it off the map and just keep it back in the archives of the software here. But I think kind of initially, as I'm thinking about this, it was initially like, what are permanent installations, right? Because none of us had the bandwidth to go around and like looking, is this still on display? Is it still there? But especially given the fact that we were able to add this question in, it tells me that, you know, we could create worlds in which, you know, public art is there for a period of time, and then once it's taken down, we can just deactivate it and then kind of move on from there. So if it's a public space, I think it's the possibility of putting it on. I wouldn't see a problem with that.
And I would imagine that we, at some point, if as needed, we could probably put some sort of link to the sites, like hours of operations or something along those lines.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that just comes down to like, as we're building this, like, what is it that we include on kind of this pop-up, right? Because
Yeah.
that would be something that's kept within the description to say like, this is currently on view at, Dover Public Library. Click here to learn more about hours and location or something like that. And then we would put the onus on that person to figure out more information. I would tell you, I mean, I'm looking for this to be a little more fancy and attractive than this, right? This feels like, very matter of fact and stuff like, cold computer. I would love it to look a little more designed out of like what the pop-ups look like, because it's also art. So, let's pull it out of government databases a little bit and make it fancy. So that is kind of what I'm pushing my team on, is how can we make this look as close to a landing page as possible, so that it's not just a pop-up for pop-up's sake, because I also want people to like be intrigued enough to go see it, and it's not just for records' sake. But great question, Ryan. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Andy. I think this is really exciting. One of the methods we discussed potentially using a resource like this for in the Public Arts Commission was sort of identifying areas that didn't have a good representation of public art. And I think that this is a great start, and you would be able to kind of take this point data and then like mesh it with some more like field data to start to say, okay, this neighborhood or whatever, I don't know, doesn't have something. And then we would have to utilize like, what is county owned property or county owned land, and where could we start to locate things? So I think that that is really exciting. One question I had is about like user friendliness, because it looks great. I do love the look of the story maps online, like on the desktop or laptop, but I wonder about it on a phone.
Totally.
Or, other like interface, because we really want, if we want to get people to use it, it has to be easily to carry around and accessible.
Yeah. I will be frank in that I haven't gone down that road yet. But obviously that is something that's on our own list as we're talking with DTI about, because, you want people in essence taking the tour, right? It's not about sitting at your computer and, oh, that's a nice looking piece of art, but not actually going to it. And so the ability not only to like click a button and it pop open, say like Google Maps, right? Of just like, how do I get there? But also just that it looks good is also something very important to us. So totally heard. And I completely agree with you. And so as we go through here, that is absolutely going to be part of like the design process, that it's not just desktop, but also mobile friendly.
Thank you, Andy, for going over this. I'm very excited about this. Public art map has been something I've wanted since, honestly, even before I started working with art in Delaware. So I'm so happy to be a part of this and actually see something I've been dreaming of come to fruition. And I agree, Anna, that I too was thinking about the accessibility functions, especially considering online and mobile when it comes to using alt text and just descriptions and captions.
Sure.
But I'm also interested in the theme fields that you have, but also any type of work that you're doing with the artists that you'll be platforming on this. Are you talking with them regarding the themes and regarding the descriptions and figuring out the best way to try and describe these types of works of art, but also maintaining what the artists may have wanted in terms of integrity with their piece?
Yeah. Ryan, I'm going to punt your way just because I know you've been inputting most of the stuff. I will tell you that I think we are very much in, I'm going to say infancy, and maybe a little, we're in like the toddlerism of the stage of like creating this, right? So a lot of it has just been getting the data in first. And then I think to your point, right, there's that then next step, which is connecting with the artists, making sure that I mean, there could be a question, right? Of, do you want this included? Although it's public art, there still might be questions around whether they want it included at all. But then also around like, what is the theme behind it? As you'll kind of see, we don't have a drop down here because wanted to be pretty inclusive of what could be included. But to your point, I completely hear you in the sense of like what we might use as a description or a theme might not be what the artist had in mind or was inspired by. Ryan, I don't know if you've had any connection with actual artists as we've been inputting here.
Only a few. Pardon me. Yeah, only a few. I gotta say that I haven't been putting much for themes and descriptions. I've been kind of focusing on the circumstances of whether or not the piece does exist, where it is, and whether or not it truly is public art. And then I also think that including a description and contacting the artist kind of privileges living artists when there's a lot of work in Delaware, that the artist might not necessarily be around anymore to speak to their intentions with the work. But I have been including sponsorship, ownerships, or, when or why something was erected to commemorate something. And I've been putting that under sponsored and commissioned.
But totally heard Benet in the sense that like if the artist is living, that we want to provide them that opportunity, right, to flush out some of those fields, because they know, versus in some of these cases where maybe the artist isn't with us or isn't reachable, that is also another obstacle that we'll be working on kind of once we then start flushing this out. It's just like, where are they and what are they kind of thing at that point. So
Thank you, because I was in this position when I was doing the public art stewards, and I had to go and research all of the different types of public art they could work on. So
yeah.
Trying to understand, like, okay, this is saying it's public art, but now it's on private property. So now I have to contact the private property owner, but they said to contact the artist.
Yeah.
And the artist is now dead. So I've been in that situation. So I just wanted to see, like, how are you going to, or if you come up against these types of issues, like how will we navigate them so that we can still create something that's fully comprehensive, but also still maintains that integrity for what the artists want, but also the owners too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Can I jump on something that what Benet was just talking about? As a potential sort of member in this process, would you like us to try and flesh out a lot of that information before it's really submitted to you?
It can't hurt, obviously, like not having to revisit a singular posting multiple times would obviously help. We have created with DTI an editor within the back end here, so that it wouldn't be like we would have to resubmit the entire thing every time that we get new information. But it couldn't hurt that like the first push through is the most comprehensive push through of information. But I obviously understand at the same time that like it may take a while to get it right. So if we know of a location, an image, and whatever information we have here, I think there is a limit to how long we should wait before just putting it on the map altogether, right? With the idea that we do have it built in that we have an editor. So it's not to say like it's all or nothing at first submission, if that makes sense.
Sure, and also to jump from Benet's point of perspective of what she was just sharing, have you had any issues, or are there any sort of like question marks that we have at this point around copyright? Reproducing images.
So I haven't hit it yet. I will acknowledge I'm not probably the most versed in copyright law as it relates to visual art. I was a musical theater major in college, so that's my claim to fame. So I have not hit that. I would tell you that I guess where I'm unsure is because if it's public, is there a copyright there? I mean, there may be in terms of reproducing or selling. But if it's public art
for educational purposes, yeah, you might, and especially if you're only representing it in a thumbnail, as opposed to like in the storyline format, you might have sort of like a lot of wiggle room around that. But that might be something that we might also, as a partner, just kind of try and check that off the list to make sure that we have the signature if it's available before we send.
Absolutely.
Cool.
And I think, right, like the kind of my thinking as this kind of onions out and we get closer and closer to public launch is, we had data here. We were able to source some data from like our e-blast and even some social media where people have been submitting through some info, but acknowledging, right, that like the next step may be kind of moving to like an influencer based thing where it's like, who knows who that could then say like, hey, other artists, do you know of public art, or do you have public art out there that you want to submit and have listed here? And in the sense too, right, like I don't know that we'll ever be in because public art is always being created, or sometimes in some cases taken down, this will never be in a final form, right? And so understanding that we will always have the opportunity to add artwork. This is a living, breathing tool. And so there probably will be a point where I will try to set like a date of like, here is a launch date that I have in mind. Let's do everything in our power to get as much data as we can in here, just so that we can make it a real thing, and then continue to kind of input data as we go here. So, but I think completely your point, and why I'm so glad that you guys have reached out was, I think we're going to be depending on partners across the state, right? Libraries, other places where there might be public art, to help us just source and include art, just because we're 7 people, 5 of which in Wilmington and 2 of which in Dover. And there's just frankly not enough time in the day to cover the state in terms of finding all the public art that's out there. And so I think the reality is we're going to be depending on so many other partners to help kind of flesh this out into full form.
Yeah, I mean, assuming, we're kind of like partners in the sense that like we'll share it on or be able to use it on our website and things like that. When it gets to the point where you're putting out publicly, like we can definitely create some sort of flyer or like electronic thing to share with our libraries and things like that can come through, the art studio or Rockwood,
Absolutely.
so that they can help share it.
Yeah. And something I'm working together with our team is just to better understand, like, do we go through a period of time in either pre-launch or right after launch where we're hiring people to kind of canvas, almost like political canvassing, right? So like taking some weekends and going around and trying to cover specific areas of the state to just see what's out there and know that we're covering streets and covering areas. Quite literally, like maybe highlighting a map to show that they were in this area and that they've gathered whatever art is there. Because I do think there is some point where like we can depend on the general public to an extent to submit some art, but I think it's gonna just be on us to make sure the data is in there, and we're doing everything in our power to get artwork into the map as it is. So, and I'm all for paying people to do that work rather than just depending on the kindness of strangers. So. So what I would say, like next step wise, I will keep you abreast as I've talked to our new contact at First Map, and just let you know kind of the timeline that they're imparting on me. What I can do in the meantime is send you guys that crowdsource link, as I'm also then talking with them. I have all of your emails from as you guys have forwarded the meeting invite around, so I can talk to them about getting you guys logged in and signed into the tool as the commission. And then let me ask, does the commission itself have like a specific one email? Like, is there like an info at, is it you, Ryan?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm wondering if it might just be easier to create just one login that is then shared amongst, rather than kind of creating it for each specific person.
Andy, I feel like if you put like me and Ryan in there, that would be good, because I don't think we'll ask the commission to.
Okay, great. And then what I can do then is start sharing the links over to you guys, so that if you guys already have an art list that's already running, you guys can already kind of just start uploading and going from there. And then following this meeting, if you give me like a day or two, I'll get a link, email around with links of other examples of the same ArcGIS templates that I'm seeing around there, just for your review. And honestly, I would love some of your feedback, what it is that even the commission would like to see, right, of what these pages might look like. So if there's something in mind where you're like, we really love this website, screenshot it to me, send it to me, show me what it is specifically you like, and then I can use that as visual inspiration for the tech team over here as well. And then what I'll also send around, right, and what you can kind of see here, that's the key, that ArcGIS in the URL. It exists in every ArcGIS map, no matter what. You'll see that those letters there somewhere. That at least tells you like, hey, it's possible because it already exists out there within the platform. Versus there are some other, like, I'll say private or, you know, non-ArcGIS based public art maps that also exist out there. That obviously they might have functionality that maybe this doesn't. I would share that there, as we close up, there is one specific website that my goal is to, once this is kind of flushed out, export and then import into it, because it is in essence a national public art map that right now we just don't have any representation in. But in essence, there's not an easy way, right, to link A to B outside of exporting the current and then importing it over. So rather than doing double the work every time, I'd rather just import everything into here and then do one kind of big data dump from one website to the other. But then at least it provides us the state tool, but then also would allow Delaware to have representation as people were to go to this larger website to search for public art near them. I believe that's a website that Philadelphia uses, but it's just not a government-owned portal. It's kind of a separate kind of public art platform from there.
Andy, unfortunately, I have to run. I have somebody at the front door, but you guys continue. I would love a link to this recording if it's possible. I'll share that with the members and such. Look forward to the rest of your information. And we have a meeting with the Public Arts Commission at the end of the month, and I can follow up with you about what they've, what their responses were to it as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. This is great work. I think everyone here really appreciates all the work that you're doing.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. Have a good day, Ryan.
You too.
Am I missing anything for those that remain? Or is there any like burning question? If something pops up, feel free to email Ryan Morris and I. We're happy to be a resource here for you guys, right? And then similarly, after we send you this recording, if in future meetings it would be beneficial for one of us to get there and, you know, talk with you guys in person, I'm happy to do so. I'm glad to know that there's not duplication happening, although I will totally understand, like, I totally get, right, if you go to the commission and they're like, no, we hate this, flip a desk kind of thing. It's not my place to get in your way, right? But I think where there's one resource already, if we can just pool efforts behind it, great. But at the same point, like, please know I'm not going to gatekeep. I'm not going to tell you like, but there already is a public art map. Why are you doing your own? Like, you do you kind of thing. And know that this is a resource here that is available should you choose to just use this instead. So, so yeah.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great day. I'll get this recording pulled down and popped over to YouTube as an unlisted and send it over to you. And so, as I said, just give me a day or two here and I'll get you kind of a more comprehensive, you know, look at some links and stuff like that. But happy to hear there's interest and happy to hear that we can flesh this out if that's how you guys choose to go. So
Great. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great one, guys.